Rookie camp is making the move to Los Angeles. Plus, is Shane Wright ready for the big leagues? We'll talk about all of that, get you some of the sights and sounds from training camp, and get you ready for the rookie showcase on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Next week, we are back to bringing you your favorite team every single day. That's right. We are almost back to our 5 a week. 5 a day would be intense. 5 a week schedule. My name is Erica L. Ayala. I'm your host of Locked On Kraken. I have written for the Seattle Kraken before they were the Seattle Kraken. I'm also a contributor right now at CBSSports.com and CBS Sports HQ, and the founder of Black Rosie Media, where we empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. Want to let you know, today's episode of Locked On Kraken are brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Now, if you need to hire, then you need Indeed. So start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked on. And we know that there are a lot of jobs, if you will, on the line when it comes to the Seattle Kraken, the roster. We had some PTO rumors that we're not going to talk about too much today. I want to talk about rookie camp. We're going to talk about Shane Wright, Berkeley Cadden, and of course, our new head coach for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. After all, it is Friday. It's a Firebirds Friday. We're going to kind of talk about Firebird prospects effectively, our Kraken prospects, a lot of them that will be with the Firebirds for the first time this year. We're expecting them to be mainstays. And so we'll talk about all of that. But I want to get started with Shane Wright because Shane is an interesting story. It got to the point right after his his draft that I was tired of talking about it. There was all this speculation. He was with the NHL team for 8 games, didn't get a lot of ice time. We talked about Ron Francis saying that some of the reason that Shane didn't get ice time was of his own doing, which I thought were really interesting comments. We broke that down. And then, of course, we've talked, especially with the Firebirds making a deep run the last 2 seasons, but last year or this past season, especially, we've talked a lot about the growth of Shane Wright. We've had Shane Wright on Locked On Kraken. If you missed that, had a little bit of a technical difficulty. So I think I still kept the a little clip where he was inverted. Anyway, that was really funny. Great guy to chat with. And his leadership has been on full display. He has talked about it. We talked in the offseason about some of the articles and Shane Wright going on podcasts and things of that nature, really saying that he wants a shot. He wants to be in the NHL. And a part of that is, him being asked a question and answering it. But I talked about this before on Locked On Kraken. There's another part of it where to have that confidence, to be so comfortable talking about those things. I think Shane Wright and his team were really signaling that, they're about the business. He had an injury in the NHL, in the AHL last season. I was a little concerned how he was going to come back, especially in the Calder Cup final. I think the first game back was a little bit rocky, but after that, he was solid and very determined. I get the sense we are getting the most determined version of Shane Wright. So if you want to talk about death glares and things of that nature that we have fun with sometimes, I think we're beyond that in that he's taking that energy and really pushing it forward in a positive manner. And so we're going to hear from Shane Wright. This is him talking yesterday at rookie camp. And I think you'll see, even in how he's approaching media, that he's more confident, he's more comfortable, and he is focused. Shane Wright is focused, man. And it's pretty exciting. Here's Shane Wright.
just improving and growing in confidence and growing in maturity and understanding what it's like to play pro and how it's how you're able to make a difference and at that level and really kind of be a top player. So I think just throughout the year, just kind of gaining that confidence, gaining that maturity in my game, kind of really saw it improve step by step as the season went on there. Yeah, I think for me, I just want to, make the guys coming in, the new guys, as comfortable as possible. Obviously, I was in their shoes just a few years ago, so I understand what it's like coming to your first camp. Maybe a little nervous. You're playing against, the NHL players for the first time. So, just want to make it as comfortable, easy for them as possible. Really, just kind of make that, that transition really easy, and help them, acclimatize themselves to this situation here.
And so you heard from Shane Wright there. He is talking about just that he, he is a little bit more mature. He's more confident. And that is showing in how he's interacting with some of the young folks. We heard from Berkeley Catton yesterday, and here's what he had to say about Shane Wright and his impressions of how Shane Wright was just approachable and how he was taking rookie camp.
Yeah, he's extremely detailed. I've noticed that everything he does, it seems like he does it right. So he's a guy that, a leader here that, guys like me and can kind of follow him in his steps, and, playing on his line will be cool. And he's always open, if I ever have a question, he's the first one to kind of jump in and answer.
Yeah, I mean, he's just talented. He's smart. He's fast, really, really good with the puck. And, obviously just short, small sample size out there today, but it'd be nice to play with him in the future for sure. I want to just, try to help him out as much as I can. Obviously, he's, a talented player. We saw, 8th overall in the draft. So he knows how to play. Just trying to, help him, give him some tips and help him out any way I can, and try to make it a little more comfortable, a little easier for him here, and make that kind of transition to this level easier for him.
Yeah, he does. I know him a little bit from the Ontario Hockey League. So the team that I took over, I think, played him the year before in the playoffs, and we watched some film on him. And he's a type of player that's going to be a type of player you build the organization around, right? He can play a 200-foot game. He's got the scoring knack. He's got good size. He's got a good shot. He's got great leadership qualities, and I think that's impressive. And for him to take that step in with Seattle, I think it's going to be that's what you want to see. You have to build your team through the draft. And now you're going to start to see 3 years into the NHL. Now you're starting to see some of the prospects come through. You've got the Nelsons, you've got the Goyettes, you've got Furcases. I think that's exciting for the Seattle fans.
And so you heard from Shane Wright talking about Berkeley Catton. You heard Berkeley Catton talking about Shane Wright. And also, again, we have a brand new head coach, Derek Laxall. I see we have of course, the new Firebirds head coach, Derek Laxall, who is talking about that Shane Wright is the type of person you build your franchise around. And, he has experience with Shane Wright, as he mentioned, but is getting to see him up close and, of course, in his own organization. And so I also want to point you to, of course, we are Tegna family here. We've talked about that a time or two, but the King 5 affiliate had a reporter, and a lot of people were writing about Shane Wright. We know that this is a really critical year for Shane Wright, and we are gonna likely see him in the NHL. But this is something that I think you should check out. It's a stand-up and an article. Shane Wright is in right place at right time to lead at Kraken rookie camp. Despite making appearances in 2 seasons with the Kraken, 2022 first-round pick Shane Wright is back at rookie camp and mentoring the newest draft class. So again, you heard that. I think, especially given the transition that's happening right now, this is exactly, as this article says, the right time, the right place for Shane Wright. And I get the sense, I talked about it even in this segment, but we've talked about it on the show before. Shane is ready. I have never felt more confident in Shane Wright than I do right now, coming into this rookie camp, obviously getting ready for training camp. Shane Wright, I don't know exactly what his impact will be, but his feistiness. I'm always talking about I want some more sandpaper. I want a little more sandpaper. Shane Wright has the capability. He has the skill set. He has the leadership and the demeanor to give that sandpaper to the Seattle Kraken, the Firebirds as well. But I want to see Shane Wright really get a shot. And as much as I have said I'm not really sure what the goal is, I get the sense that the Seattle Kraken want to go young, and they want to go young as soon as possible. When you have a team like the Seattle Kraken, we've talked about this a lot in the offseason, that has such a highly revered prospect pool. We've tapped out when it comes to veterans on the salary cap. Getting these prospects to work, that's how we make those longer, higher level contracts make sense. But it's got to be the right balance. So I still have questions. I still think if it doesn't work out, my first question is not going to be to the head coaches, the two new head coaches, Dan Bylsma for the Seattle Kraken, Dave Laxdal for the Firebirds. I'm not going to be questioning that. I'm definitely, Derek Laxdal and Haxtell, at least how I pronounce Haxtell, because I have an accent from New York. I'm going to get that confused all the time. Derek and Dan are our two head coaches. I expect a lot from them. We're going to hear from Coach Laxdal. I'm going to summarize what he said as the team gets ready for the face-off in Los Angeles, which we'll talk about. There's no one is making excuses for this Kraken team, and I personally love it. The energy is definitely different than Dave and Dan to an extent as well, but definitely a different energy from Dave. And I'm excited. I think the 3 Fs are going to be in big play. If you're an everydayer or an OGer, fun, fast, forechecking, fun and free are pretty much interchangeable. Maybe I'll put a bonus F in there, but that's what I'm expecting. And that, I think, is what the coaching staff is expecting. And I think that the players, especially the young players, are going to be able to deliver that. And it starts with rookie camp. It's already started with rookie camp. We're going to get a chance to see these rookies in the face-off. I'll tell you how you can watch that. But first, coming up next on Locked On Kraken, we're going to hear a little bit more from Berkeley Catton and from Derek Laxdal, the head coach of the Firebirds. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships, and it is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Guaranteed Fit is only available to customers in the US of A. Hey, thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. If you haven't done so already, make sure you check out Locked On NHL. And next Friday, we'll have our next women's hockey spotlight. There's plenty to talk about. We have team names now. We've got more updates on arenas, because I talked about that last Friday on the Women's Hockey Spotlight. So plenty to talk about. Make sure you tune in, and I will be there with you next Friday on Locked On NHL. Let's get back to it. Berkeley Catton is our first rounder coming into this rookie camp, and all signs point to Catton sticking with junior hockey. He's got some time age-wise. That being said, a lot of the scout is that Catton can be and is NHL ready. Now, if you're an everydayer or an OGer, you know I am all about the eye test, baby, which is why I'm so excited that even though I'm not in Seattle yet, I will be in Seattle by this time next week for sure. The good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Or the sound, I guess. The Puget Sound. Anyway, I expect to be in Seattle around this time. I expect to have seen Berkeley and chatted with a few players, but I don't have to wait to see him in game action working with other Kraken prospects and with Kraken systems because we have the rookie showcase. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, especially in the next segment. But for right now, let's go back to what we heard from day one of rookie camp. I want to take you to what Berkeley himself had to say about hitting the ice and about Coach Laxdal. Here we go, Berkeley Catton.
Yeah, I mean it's the same. You're a little nervous every time you get to come in here. It's the NHL, and it's pretty surreal saying that. And this has been my dream my whole life. So to kind of be here now, it's pretty cool. Well, I'm wherever my feet are at. So if I go through this camp and impress and play some NHL hockey games, good for me. That's obviously what I'm striving for. I don't know why we really shoot for anything less than that. And then going back would just be, like I was kind of mentioning, all the experience I learned here would go back. So either way, in my eyes, it's a positive, and I'm just extremely happy to be here.
So that was Berkeley Catton talking yesterday at rookie training camp. You heard him talk a little bit about juniors, him being where his feet are, because he had alluded to in several of his answers that he likes being up. He wants to take this back to his junior team. And so then he was explicitly asked, would he be disappointed if he didn't make the NHL? And that's when you heard his response, I am where my feet are. Of course, that's the goal, to make the NHL. But, that he wants to be able to make an impact. And I think he's saying all of the right things. I do get the sense, even from the draft, we've played some of those clips, and the clips from rookie camp, especially the more compelling ones, I'm going to post those on our YouTube page so that you can check them out. And maybe just as bonus audio episodes for those who listen on audio. I think that Berkeley seems like he's a fierce competitor. Like he has a competitive edge. That sandpaper, baby. I like it. And again, I'm hearing that he could be NHL ready now. I just want to see. I want to see what he's got going on. And we're going to get a chance to see him and the rest of the roster. I am super excited. And, I think when you have several new coaches, it can be a little daunting. It's a little bit tough. But a player like Berkeley Catton, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And he's coming into everything effectively with fresh eyes. I mean, he did come to dev camp and, of course, was working under Dan Bilesma at the time. But, everything more or less he's experiencing it for the first time. He also did talk about, being from Saskatchewan and, of course, the Eberle folklore of World Juniors and, just being a little bit intimidated maybe or shy to talk to Jordan Eberle, who, some of the guys on the Kraken roster are around doing warm-ups and stuff like that. He, some of the young guys talked about coming in earlier just to meet some of the guys. And I thought that was super cute. But, I think there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of excitement. Yes, there is a lot of newness for our Kraken and Firebirds, but in a good way, in a really, really good way. And I hope we parlay this into something that can be effective and efficient. And the first chance is going to be this weekend. So Saturday and Sunday, tomorrow and Sunday, the Seattle Kraken are going to be participating in the rookie face-off that the LA Kings are hosting. And coming up next on Locked On Kraken, I'm going to share with you not just the philosophy that we're getting from Derek Laxdal, who will be the Firebirds head coach, which we've talked a little bit about, but I'd like you to hear it from him. I'm also going to break down what Coach Derek has said are the expectations for the Seattle Kraken rookies tomorrow, how they're figuring out line combinations, things of that nature, and then how you can engage with the rest of rookie camp until we start training camp next week. And I will be in Seattle. We also have another big announcement coming to you very, very soon. And I think you're going to like it. It's only going to help us grow the show and hopefully our Locked On Insiders community. Speaking of Locked On Insiders, it seems like there's been a little bit of trouble with the stock up, stock down, and so I'm going to try and troubleshoot that. So I apologize. I mentioned it on another episode, but before we close out today's episode, Friday's episode, I'll mention the stock up, stock downs that I'm looking for, and you can reply directly in subtext. So apologies for any technical difficulties, but coming up next, let's hear what the philosophy is, not only for the season, but for the showcase and how you can watch the rookie showcase. That's coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Mentioned it at the top of the show. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for candidates isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates lightning fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And I also want to let you know that listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, then you need Indeed. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. We have an exciting weekend. I'm going to be putting out little nuggets here and there, whether it's through the insiders community on YouTube and again on audio, just so you can hear from our guys. It's an exciting time. Kraken prospects, Kraken players are back on the ice. And next week, we're actually going to go back to the media availabilities. We finally got media availability with Maddie Beniers. We also heard from Adam Larson and Ron Francis. So I wanted to talk about rookie camp. I think that's the most pressing thing. And I'm going to share with you in a minute how you can tune in. But I want to circle back because I think there's some interesting nuggets that I will be looking to unearth and discover a little bit more about when I'm in Seattle. So I want to talk about that next week. But before we end today's show, we got to talk about our new head coach. Our new head coach for the Coachella Valley Firebirds is going to be Derek Laxdal. And so I've talked about this before. We have talked to general manager and head coach of the Kansas City Mavericks, Tad O'Had, about how seamless everything is, how the communication is weekly between the ECHL Mavericks, the AHL Firebirds, and the NHL Kraken. And Laxdal has talked also about systems. Dan Bylsma has talked about systems. And so we did get more confirmation that Derek will be teaching the same systems, but specifically, and I love this, you'll hear it in a moment, he was asked about the transition that he needs to make in order to fit into the system and thus making sure that all of the players fit into the system and systems that are running through the organization. So let's go to Derek and what he had to say at rookie training camp.
Well, we just talked about, getting our skates on the ground today, and we worked on a few systems with the forecheck, neutral zone forecheck, and a little bit of the D zone off some of the drills. And it was just about getting acclimated to your equipment today, getting acclimated to your teammates, and let's just make sure we take a step every day. And these two games are big for these players on the weekend down in LA. It's a springboard for these players to go into training camp. And I know we've had some players through Dallas Stars and Texas Stars. Yanni Gourde3 was a player that I used as an example. Went through the process and then ended up making that NHL team. So for these players, I think it's a great chance for them to show their game going forward. We are going to run the exact same systems that Dan's going to run here. I think that's part of the process for these kids. It makes it easier for when they get called up. There's no gray area for them. So we're going to run all the systems the same way. Yeah, I'll make adjustments. It's not that hard. At the end of the day, there's only like 4 or 5 systems, but there's different ways to play them, different ways to teach them. So I want to make sure that the terminology is the same. Some of my terminology is different. So I have to make those adjustments to make sure that the players that are in Coachella Valley, when they get called up, they understand that there's no gray area when they come up to Seattle. Well, the biggest thing for me and my staff is getting to know some of the players that are going to be in CV. I think that's for them to, when they come down at the end of the training camp, they're going to be that much more comfortable. And we only have a week of training camp down there, so they'll hit the ground running and getting ready for the opening of our season. So I think the biggest thing for me is just the being up here, being a part of the training camp, learning the systems, learning the terminology that Dan and his staff are using, and then we can have that familiarity with the players and the systems when we go back down to CV. Well, the players that played for me in Oshawa were very lucky because I teach a pro-style game. I try and get these players prepared in the junior level for the next level. That jump from Canadian Major Junior or NCAA is a huge jump. To go from there even to the ECHL, to the East Coast League, is a huge transition. So it's off-ice preparation, it's your daily habits, it's your on-ice preparation, and that's why we have the American Hockey League, is because these players get a chance to go down there and refine their game on and off the ice and become the pros. They learn to get bigger, stronger, they change with their nutrition. So it's a huge jump. And so for the players, Shane Wright's a great example. He was down in the American Hockey League. He's still young, he's 20 years old. He's down there refining his game. Now he's put the work in, he's gotten big, stronger, faster. He's learning the game, he's maturing. And I think that's the biggest difference for these kids, is they're going to learn how to mature at the American Hockey level. I think one GM that I had, he used the references, it's like an orange on an orange tree, right? They go down there, they have to go down it, and when they're ripe, they're ready to go. It's first time on the ice. I think I'll give them, I guess the big thing for me is that I'd like to see some of these kids in the game on the weekend. And then, obviously he's a special talent. I've heard great things about him from the Western Hockey League and Canadian Major Junior. So obviously he's a special player. But I think I just kind of hold my opinion until I see a few times on the ice. But obviously he's a special player, being drafted 8th overall.
So, Coach Derek, like me, is like, hey, let's see this eye test. And I love it. He also talked about how becoming, and part of the work that happens in the AHL is making these guys pro ready on a day in, day out basis, which is why, as we heard from Yager Fergus in particular today, we also heard from Coach Derek, talking about the opportunity to play in this Los Angeles Kings showcase is a part of that development, is a part of, on the day in, day out, making these rookies or the players participating in rookie camp professionals through and through, because some of them are coming up from juniors. Now, they might not be with the NHL team, but will most definitely be on the AHL team. Fergus seems like one of those guys. And, I liked hearing from Fergus. This is one of the things I will definitely add as kind of like bonus content on YouTube and for the audio listeners. But Fergus talking about how he, doesn't really know what to expect. This is his first time not coming to rookie camp, but going and beginning his professional career, more than likely with the Firebirds, but that he has a way that he sets goals, but because there are a lot of unknown variables, he's kind of holding off. And I love that. I spoke to a goalie that plays in the PWHL or played in the PWHL last year, Corrine Schroeder, and said something very similar. And I think that's smart. I always like when you can kind of take things in and then set your goals. So I like that. Also talked about the importance of and Allison Lucan asked the question that this is a little bit of a different rookie camp than he would have experienced because they have a road trip, and talked about how this is the time when you get to know the guys, the teammates. When you're traveling with people, you get to know people a little bit differently than, when you kind of can do your own thing when you're at home. So I like that. But I also liked how Coach Derek and Furcus told us this first, and then it was reinforced by Laxdal. But this is a business trip. And several times, Coach Derek said, I told the guys, this is a business trip. This is a business trip. So I do think that there's a level of discipline. I don't want to say that it didn't exist before, but there's a level of discipline that Coach Derek is very comfortable with sharing with us as media. And I'll look into how he is really going to mold and shape this team. And I talked about the 3 Fs, and you can't play fast. You can't forecheck, which is an aggressive way of playing hockey, if you don't have that urgency. And I do get the sense that Coach Derek is going to provide that urgency. Now, where the fun comes from, it seems like Dan Bilesma is really good and is really good at kind of, I don't want to say blurring the lines, but meandering through, being kind of tough and firm when he needed to be, but also allowing things to organically breathe. So it's going to be interesting to see how Coach Laxdal takes, how he approaches that, because he is a business guy. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it's noticeable. He's got an intensity to him that I like. He also talked about Coach Derek. He was asked about the lineups, what he was looking for. He said the lineups were decided by the, quote, organization. To me, that sounds like a guy that has been given instructions from higher up. I'm assuming it's the front office, maybe even Dan Bilesma, because they want to see certain combinations. They want to see the first round draft picks. They want to see guys that maybe are fighting for an NHL spot, if not this season, maybe next season. So that was really interesting to me on multiple levels. So the lineups that we're seeing were preordained, predetermined, and very intentionally. And again, I'll get to in a minute how you can watch the showcase. It actually started today. There's some games later on today, still, at least at the time that I'm recording, but the Kraken will play Friday and Saturday. They did not participate, or excuse me, they will play Saturday and Sunday. They did not participate today, Friday. I think another thing I found interesting, and it goes back to what we talked about at the top of the show, specifically regarding Shane Wright, but Coach Derek is already saying that what impressed him the most in the 2-3 days that he's had on the ice with these young guys. He calls them kids a lot, which is not my favorite word at all. I thought that was very interesting. It kind of also gives me a sense he's got a little old school in him. Not a bad thing, just a little different. But he kept calling them kids, and I was a little thrown by that. And then reporters started using the term kids a little more liberally. It was very interesting. Anyway, what Coach Derek talked about is that the older crop that was at rookie camp, like Shane Wright, they were taking on leadership roles without being asked when it came to leading things in the practices, stepping up. He said it showed the maturity of that group. I think it also shows that they're ready. They're ready to go. And I love that there is this self-start mentality. And this is a team that is ready to get after it. You've got a lot of these guys who for 2 seasons now competed for an AHL championship and just fell short. You've got, and they're going to be joining a crop of guys that most of them have been around, felt the high of making it to the second round in the playoffs, and then the absolute low of missing the playoffs altogether last season. So again, urgency comes to mind, a hunger, a desire. I know that's what the guys said last year, but there was a little bit of a disconnect between what we were hearing and what we were seeing. And I don't really know what to make of that yet. We might have to circle back to that. But we have time. We'll talk about that next week. I want to make sure you know how you can watch the rookie showcase. Or the rookie face-off, excuse me. The rookie face-off Los Angeles broadcast details. The LA Kings have made the complete broadcast schedule available. I'll go over the schedule with you shortly. All 10 games of the face-off will be streamed without regional restrictions. Streaming details can be found on the respective team's website. All 3 of the Kings games can be accessed live online with a play-by-play provided by Josh Schaefer and color commentary from Daryl Evans. And so the Seattle Kraken, they'll take on the Colorado rookie camp attendees tomorrow, September 14th at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Then on Sunday, Seattle will take on the Vegas rookie camp attendees at 1 p.m. Pacific time. The rookie camp or showcase started today, Friday, September 13th. You've got a game at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. So right around the time right now. And then another one at 7 p.m. So you have time. Colorado and Anaheim at 3:30, Vegas and LA at 7 p.m. After Saturday, tomorrow, again, the Seattle Kraken rookies take on the Colorado rookies at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Utah takes on LA at 7 p.m. Saturday. And then after Vegas and Seattle at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, Anaheim and San Jose take the ice. And then finally, for Monday, September 16th, Game 1 is Colorado versus San Jose, starting at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Game 2 is Utah versus Vegas at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. And then Game 3 is Anaheim versus Los Angeles at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. You can find all of that on the Kings website, NHL.com/Kings. Go to their news tab and you'll see the rookie showcase. They also have a how to watch, which has the link, which is how you watch. So there is something, it's called Kraken Rookies, aimed to show their stuff by Bob Condor. And there is a link. I will put this in the show notes for you. But the games will be live streamed at nhl.com/Kraken. So as I just told you, per the LA Kings website, you can see all of that. And, I think it's going to be pretty cool. So hopefully you have some time to tune into the rookie showcase. I will check out what I can. And we will, of course, talk about how we think everyone did. Berkeley Catton, someone I'm excited to see in action. Very curious to see what Shane Wright looks like. I mean, the list goes on and on. Ferkus is someone I think a lot of us want to see. I told you Tucker Robertson is someone I'm keeping a keen eye on. But we have time. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about rookie camp. And then those who are sticking around, all of them, for training camp, or we're assuming. And there'll probably be some other names. I'm excited. I'll be in Seattle. I can't wait to catch up with you all. Until then, be kind to yourself, be kind to one another, hold fast, stay true, and loud and proud as early as tomorrow. If you tune into the rookie showcase, I want you to say, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.